Welcome to the William H. Willennar Genealogy Center, a service of Eckhart Public Library. Welcome to Digitization for Institutions. In this video, I will be giving you information about the process and the importance of digitization by institutions such as libraries, societies, religious organizations, and other groups. Through this video, I hope that you will learn more about digitization and be inspired to begin digitizing records and other items held by your institution. The Willennar Genealogy Center is part of the Eckhart Public Library. We are located at 700 South Jackson Street in Auburn, Indiana. We opened in 2002 and we focus on genealogy, family history, and local history of DeKalb County. We also focus on digitization. It's kind of a big word, but it's a fairly simple concept. Digitization simply means making digital files of physical items. For example, scanning a photograph or a document to make a digital picture file of an item is an example of digitization. Digitization is an important way to share items with a wider audience. It's also a vital step in the process of digitally preserving an item. A case study in digitization is the Willennar Genealogy Center's Postcards from the Past project. Postcards from the Past is a project by Willennar Genealogy Center staff and volunteers to digitize the massive postcard collection owned by the late John Martin Smith. John Martin Smith was the DeKalb County historian until his death in 2011. His family has granted digital rights to the collection to Eckhart Public Library, and we are working on digitizing his massive collection before returning the items to the Smith family. As of June 2014, more than 2,100 postcards had been scanned by staff and volunteers, with more being scanned every week. After postcards are scanned, they are cataloged by staff using PastPerfect Online. This involves creating metadata, or data about the pictures. Metadata includes a description of the card, the year the photograph was taken, the place the photograph was taken, the publisher of the postcard, the size of the postcard, and more. All of this information is entered into PastPerfect. Once the postcards are cataloged, they will be uploaded to the Willennar Genealogy Center photo archives. The photo archives can be found on the Willennar Genealogy Center website at epl.lib.in.us/genealogy.php by clicking on Photo Archives. In our photo database, you can search for anything we've uploaded. Images and information about the postcards will then be harvested by the Indiana State Library and put on the Indiana Memory Digital Library. Indiana Memory, at in.gov/memories, includes digital images of items in a variety of Indiana libraries, museums, archives, and cultural organizations. It's a wonderful resource. So, how can an institution get started on a digitization project? There are many important considerations and steps that must be taken for a digitization project to be successful. First, it's important to identify the exact collection to be digitized. Don't be afraid to break a collection down into smaller, more manageable collections. When we began to tackle the massive John Martin Smith collection, it seemed like an impossible task. However, when we decided to tackle just the postcards at first, it became a much more manageable project. It's also important to prioritize the most important items in your collection. Digitization does take a while, and you don't want to waste time and resources digitizing something that has already been digitized by somebody else and is easily accessible online, for example. Be sure to first digitize things that are rare or one of a kind. When you've determined what you want to digitize, it's time to figure out how to do it. It's important to find the correct scanner for your needs. The Willennar Genealogy Center uses large Epson flatbed scanners. Flatbed scanners are good for scanning multiple types of items, including fragile papers and documents that would not be appropriate for a document feeder scanner. There are also overhead book scanners that are best for scanning books or incredibly brittle documents. You will also want to figure out the best resolution at which to scan items. You want to scan at a resolution that is best for what is needed to capture the amount of detail on the original. At the Willennar Genealogy Center, We scan documents at 300 dots per inch, and we scan photographs at least 600 dots per inch. Finally, you need to decide what format you will use to save your scans. This usually comes down to one question, TIFF or JPEG. Let's examine the pros and cons of each. TIFF, or Tagged Image File Format, is a lossless graphics format. That means that when images are saved, they do not lose any data and the images do not deteriorate. However, the drawback is that because the files are never compressed, they're usually huge. They can take up a lot of room on a server or hard drive. JPEG, which stands for Joint Photographic Experts Group, is a lossy graphics format. That means that when images are saved, they are compressed and data is discarded. That means that the more you save a JPEG, the more they deteriorate. This makes the file size much more manageable, though. At the Willennar Genealogy Center, we save everything as a TIFF file. However, when we give someone a digital copy of a photograph or use an image file for something, we usually save it as a JPEG. When you're digitizing items, it's important to remember the general principles of digitization, as laid out by the Indiana State Library. Capture once, use many times. That means that an item should be scanned as a high-quality master copy, usually a TIFF file, and that copies can be made from that master copy. Create a faithful reproduction of the original. Don't be like fashion magazine editors and digitally erase imperfections on the image. Keep those wrinkles, crinkles, tears, and discolorations. You should also scan so that the edges of an item can be seen in the image. Scan from the earliest generation practical. For example, a scan of a negative is a better option than a scan of a print made from a negative, and a scan of a print is better than a scan of a photocopy of a print. However, be practical about it. Scanning a print is better than scanning a damaged negative. If you're scanning an item, you need to save them too. What's the best way to accomplish this? First, come up with a numbering system that makes sense to everyone and is easily explainable. Then, keep a spreadsheet or database of numbers and items. At the Willennar Genealogy Center, we name items with the acquisition number. We use the year and month of the donation, the number of items that came in that month, and the number of items in a donation. For example, this donation was the 5th donation in the 8th month, August, of the year 2013. However you decide to number your scans, just be sure you write down the system somewhere. Once you've scanned your items, you want to save them for posterity, share them with others, and maybe even display them for the world. You need to make sure that your metadata, or data about the image, is tied to the images somehow. At the Willennar Genealogy Center, we use a program called PastPerfect that has metadata fields that we can enter the information into. However, it can be as simple as an Excel spreadsheet or Access database with the image numbers and information in it. Once you've scanned the items, you can put them onto flash drives, CDs, external hard drives, or online services like Dropbox to share them with individuals. But what if you want the world to see your photographs? The Willennar Genealogy Center uses PastPerfect Online to display its digitized items. Other digital collection management software like ContentDM can be used. However, the Library of Congress has its photos displayed, metadata and all, on Flickr. A free site like that is a great way to share your scans with the world. Finally, you want to make sure that you back up your images. Store backup files off-site, in the cloud, or, better yet, both. So digitization is cool, but it seems like a lot of work. Why should you think about digitizing? Accessibility is a big reason. Items whose physical location is in Indiana are accessible to people from Texas to Timbuktu when they're digitized. That's why we digitize so many items at the Willennar Genealogy Center, and that's why we've been so pleased to partner with the Indiana State Library on the Indiana Memory Digital Library. Another reason to digitize is to help save the original items. Originals will last longer because they're handled less. If there is a good scan of a photograph, the original photograph can stay safe and snug in storage. Digitization is also a way to save a copy of materials. We are digitizing the items in the John Martin Smith collection in part so that we can keep a copy of materials that don't belong to us, and we are so appreciative of the Smith family for allowing us to do that. Digitization is a good way to make copies of items. Finally, digitization can help alleviate space and money crises. Both space and money are finite, and large collections can cost money to purchase and maintain, and can take up a lot of physical space. Sometimes it's prudent to digitize items rather than purchasing them. At the Willennar Genealogy Center, we are committed not only to digitizing items, but also to teaching others about digitization. If you have any questions about digitizing or want to know more about how to begin a digitization program of your own, please don't hesitate to contact us.